When people start thinking about language, the first question which often occurs to them is this: is language natural to humans? In the same way that grunting is natural to pigs, and barking comes naturally to dogs. Or is it just something we happen to have learned, in the same way that dogs may learn to beg, or elephants may learn to waltz, or humans may learn to play the guitar? Clearly, in one sense, children learn whatever language they are exposed to, be it Chinese, Nootka or English. So no one would deny that learning is very important. But the crucial question is whether children are born with blank sheets in their head as far as language is concerned, or whether humans are programmed with an outline knowledge of the structure of languages in general. This question of whether language is partly due to nature or wholly due to learning or nurture is often referred to as the nature-nurture controversy, and has been discussed for centuries. For example, it was the topic of one of Plato's dialogues, the Cratylus. Controversies which have been going on for literally ages tend to behave in a characteristic fashion. They lie dormant for a while, then break out fiercely. This particular issue resurfaced in linguistics in 1959 when the linguist Noam Chomsky wrote a devastating and witty review of verbal behavior, a book by the Harvard psychologist B.F. Skinner 1957. Chomsky 1959. This book claimed to explain language as a set of habits gradually built up over the years. Many technologies have promised these qualities, but few have been commercially viable. What's been lacking is the performance data needed to demonstrate that these technologies are durable, genuinely environmentally beneficial, and suitable to be insured. Over the past 13 years, our Department of Architecture and Civil Engineering has led on research into straw as a low-impact building material. This work, which has included developing a unique straw bale panel as well as scientific monitoring and testing, has now culminated in crucial industry certifications. The BMTRAD ACE-Q Mark certification guarantees a straw building's energy efficiency, fire safety, durability and weather resilience, and means that developers and homebuyers can now get insurance and mortgages for straw homes and buildings. The innovative straw walls in the new houses provide 2 times more insulation than required by current UK building regulations. Based on monitoring a residential straw bale development in Leeds, fuel bill reductions up to 90% can be expected. The walls have been built using model technology, prefabricated panels consisting of a wooden structural frame infilled with straw bales or hemp and rendered with either a breathable lime-based system or ventilated timber or brick cladding. This technology combines the lowest carbon footprint and the best operational CO2 performance of any system of construction currently available. In fact, as an agricultural co-product, straw buildings can be carbon negative as straw absorbs CO2 when it grows. Brand loyalty exists when consumers repeat purchase your brand rather than swapping and switching between brands. It is widely agreed that it is far more expensive to have to find a new customer than to keep existing ones happy, so brand loyalty is crucial for achieving high profit margins. For charities, it is important to set a marketing objective of improving brand loyalty. If existing donors can be persuaded to set up a direct debit to the charity, its cash flow will improve significantly. Although some brands stay fresh for generations, Marmite is over 100 years old, others become jaded due to changes in consumer tastes and lifestyles. At this point, the firms need to refresh the brand image to keep the products relevant to the target market. A clear objective must be set. For instance, what brand attributes do we want to create? What do we want the brand to stand for? This occurs when a firm aims to change a brand's image, so that the brand appeals to a new target market. 12 years into its life cycle, McVitie's decided to reposition its Hobnobs biscuit brand. Hobnobs had been positioned as a homely, quite healthy biscuit for middle-aged consumers. Research pointed McVitie's in a new direction, younger, more male, and less dull. So new packaging was designed and then launched in conjunction with a new, brighter advertising campaign. In 2013, Hobnobs sales were worth £36 million, 9% up on the previous year. In such an environment, warfare is no longer purely directed against the military potential of adversarial states. It is rather directed at infiltrating all areas of their societies and to threaten their existences. The comparatively easy access to weapons of mass destruction, in particular relatively and low-cost biological agents, is of key concern. Both government and non-governmental actors prefer to use force in a way that can be characterized as unconventional, or also as small wars. War waged according to conventions is an interstate phenomenon. The small war is the archetype of war, in which the protagonists acknowledge no rules and permanently try to violate what conventions do exist. The protagonists of the small war observe neither international standards nor arms control agreements. They make use of territories where they do not have to fear any sanctions because there is no functioning state to assume charge of such sanctions or because the state in question is too weak to impose such sanctions. This type of war does not provide for any warning time. It challenges not only the external security of the nation-states and international community, but also their internal safety.
It would be reasonable to think that the environment is the source of differences in cognitive skills, that we are what we learn. It is clear, for example, that human beings are not born with a full vocabulary. They have to learn words. Hence, learning must be the mechanism by which differences in vocabulary arise among individuals. And differences in experience, say, in the extent to which parents model and encourage vocabulary skills or in the quality of language training provided by schools, must be responsible for individual differences in learning. Earlier in this century, psychology was in fact dominated by environmental explanations for variance in cognitive abilities. More recently, however, most psychologists have begun to embrace a more balanced view, one in which nature and nurture interact in cognitive development. During the past few decades, studies in genetics have pointed to a substantial role for heredity in molding the components of intellect, and researchers have even begun to track down the genes involved in cognitive function. These findings do not refute the notion that environmental factors shape the learning process. Instead, they suggest that differences in people's genes affect how easily they learn.
Assessment is a central process in education. If students learned what they were taught, we would never need to assess. We could instead just keep records of what we had taught. But as every teacher knows, many students do not learn what they are taught. Indeed, when we look at their work, it is sometimes hard to believe that they were in the classroom. In fact, it is impossible to predict with any certainty what students will learn as the result of a particular sequence of classroom activities. And because we cannot teach well without finding out where our students are starting from, we have to assess. Even if all our students started out at the same point, a highly unlikely situation. Each of them will have reached different understandings of the material being studied within a very short period of time. That is why assessment is the bridge between teaching and learning. It is only through assessment that we can find out whether what has happened in the classroom has produced the learning we intended. Of course, assessment is also used for other purposes in education, which makes the picture much more complicated. American English is, without doubt, the most influential and powerful variety of English in the world today. There are many reasons for this. First, the United States is, at present, the most powerful nation on earth, and such power always brings with it influence. Indeed, the distinction between a dialect and a language has frequently been made by reference to power. As has been said, a language is a dialect with an army. Second, America's political influence is extended through American popular culture, in particular through the international reach of American films, movies, of course, and music. As Kahan has pointed out, the internationally dominant position of a culture results in a forceful expansion of its language. The expansion of language contributes to the prestige of the culture behind it. Third, the international prominence of American English is closely associated with the extraordinarily quick development of communications technology. Microsoft is owned by an American, Bill Gates. This means a computer's default setting for language is American English, although of course this can be changed to suit one's own circumstances.